This is the third video tonight, and honestly, I just want to get it done, so, let's go. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video, we are going to be continuing my series of series in which we're going to be discussing the series I don't want to finish. Before we get into anything bookish, however, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what was one series you decided to DNF. This is going to be the final video in my series of series. I will put a link to the previous two in the cards over here if you are interested in checking them out and didn't see them before. This one is going to be discussing the series I'm not planning to finish. Now, I will say that most of these are fairly popular series. Sorry if one of these is your favorite or you really love it. You can try to convince me that I should continue. I won't guarantee anything, but honestly, a lot of these are just ones that didn't win me over, or I got too far in and still didn't care all that much. Let's just jump into the series themselves. The majority of these I read this year. Let's start with the one that is furthest back, and honestly, I probably won't remember too much about it, but that's gonna be The Diviners by loveyoubye. I actually ended up DNFing the third book. I believe it was Before the Devil Breaks You. This is because I loved the atmosphere in this book, but I could not get behind the ridiculously high number of characters and perspectives. Many of the characters we follow are interesting, have very unique voices. However, unfortunately, many of them I either didn't like, didn't care about, or I would constantly forget what was happening in their perspective. That's really unfortunate. I think we bounced around between at least 7 perspectives, occasionally 8, maybe more. And that's just too much for me. That is too many people and too many stories to keep straight. I was really hoping that by the third book, where all of the characters now know one another, that we would see that number dwindle down, or at the very least, it would be a lot easier to keep each of the stories clear because multiple characters would be in the same one. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Usually each two would have their own little side plot that was going on, and it was way too much. I just wasn't engaged anymore. And after 10 hours into the audiobook and I just still didn't really care, I decided to officially give up on that one, unfortunately, and I don't really see myself finishing out the series. I've heard that the last book is very long and a little disappointing. I'm gonna cut my losses with that one. Oh, actually, this next one was technically from last year, and that is The Scholomance by Naomi Novik. The first book was Deadly Education, and while I did give it 3 stars, overall I was not engaged enough to really want to pick up the second book. I think it's only going to be a duology. In the first book, it was her junior year. This final one is her senior year. There was not nearly enough plot for my liking. The main character, Elle, very unlikable, not a problem at all, and honestly, I did think it was kind of interesting to learn about this school where there are no teachers. Most things in the school are trying to kill you, but unfortunately, that's what took up majority of the book. This is so much info dumping, and I enjoyed learning about this stuff, but it was so much of the book that I didn't really know what the main plot was until I was probably 70% in. And then there's a little bit of a romance thing that takes place, but because I didn't really enjoy Elle, I wasn't really invested in a romance for her, unfortunately. I finished out the book, but I have no plans of picking up the second one. If you loved it, I'm really happy for you. I did not. Then we have The Montague Siblings by Mackenzie Lee. I read the first book, which was The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, I think. I also read the little novella that comes afterwards, which is like The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky or something along those lines. It was just some additional fluff between our main characters, Monty and Percy. I did enjoy this story. It's a historical fiction following a group of teenagers as they travel across Europe, basically, and get into a bunch of hijinks. It was entertaining and very, very much had lots of chaotic bisexual energy going on, but the second book is focusing on the sister character. I want to say her name was Felicity, but I don't know if that's right. I believe Felicity was asexual, and then I think the third book is supposed to be following their youngest brother, who in the first book is barely a baby, I believe. I just don't really care all that much. I think the second one is actually also supposed to be focusing on Felicity with pirates or something along those lines. I haven't really heard all of that great things, let alone the child getting his own in the third. I'm just no interest here to continue. Okay, this one. this is the one that might get me some angry comments. That's gonna be the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. I gave Leigh Bardugo 5 books. I usually give authors 2 books before I decide they're just officially not for me. I gave her 5. And she still never got past a 3.5 rating. So unfortunately, I just think her writing style is not my taste. Now looking back, I do understand that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is very much a product of its time, and I have a newfound appreciation for Ninth House. Even though I wasn't a terribly big fan of it, I do think you can really see how her writing has improved over the years in that book. Six of Crows is one that is just so hyped, and everybody tells you you're gonna fall in love with these characters. This bound family is just gonna win your heart, that it has a really high stakes plot. I think the hype just got to me. I didn't enjoy the story nearly as much as everybody else seems to. Nina was fantastic. I did love her. I was really invested in the storyline between her and Matthias, but I spoiled what happens there for myself, so I have no investment to continue reading the story because I already know what's going to happen. I still wonder why we didn't get Wyland's perspective when it's called Six of Crows and you're only going to give 5 of their perspectives. I don't understand the thinking. Yes, I'm sorry. There's a big twist that happens at the end. I totally expected it. I saw that coming from a mile away. I can kind of piece together how the next one is going to go. On top of that, I've heard that the second book, Crooked Kingdom, is very, very character focused. And if I don't care about the characters all that much, why am I going to spend 600 pages reading about the characters? If anybody has another good heist book to recommend though, please leave me a comment. Okay, so these next 3 actually all came about in the same video, which was my Pirates 5x5. I'll put a link to that if you are interested for full-on reviews. While I enjoyed all 3 of these, well, actually, one of them I didn't enjoy that much. None of them interested me enough to continue reading the next book. First up is Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. This is the one that actually I didn't really enjoy. I gave it 2 stars. I think this just was super underdeveloped across the board. The world building never really felt completely fleshed out. There's so many characters, no one has depth, unfortunately, and then the plot just is really thin and it doesn't feel like there's a very strong driving force for the plot to progress forward. Don't get me started on the relationship, okay? We're not gonna get into that. That's the first book in a trilogy. If you can't tell, not interested in continuing. The next one was Fable by Adrienne Young. While I did enjoy this and I was very interested in Fable, who was this daughter of a big name pirate that was left on a island to try and find her way off, and eventually once she does, her father will give her whatever it is he owes her. I had a good time reading this. I was interested. I don't think the relationship that's built in this has enough basis for me to be invested. The plot, not the strongest. Fable was probably the most well-developed character, and I did enjoy her. With how this one ends, I didn't care to pick up the next one. I was plenty satisfied with what had happened to Fable in the first, not really looking to continue on with Namesake. The last one is All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This one I probably enjoyed the most out of these 3. I really loved the main character in this. She is very unapologetically unlikable, but she still won me over. I actually had a friend texting me about this series earlier today, and she just was mentioning how there's so much bisexual energy going on, and I do think she's right in that. The magic in this is so cool also. I really was interested in that. Plot, pretty good, wasn't terribly engaging in a way where I have to know what's going to happen next in the second book. Personally, I was plenty satisfied with this. I don't really feel like I'm missing out too much by not picking up the next one. This next one is, I think, mostly because this author and I just have very different taste in men, and that's the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey. I tried the first book and I DNF'd it. I tried the second book and I DNF'd it. DNF'd both of them. Sorry, this author, not for me. Across the board, it seems as though Tessa Bailey writes a very strong, silent, alpha male characters for her romances, and that is just not my thing, not my type, not interested in it. I don't even know how to voice my feelings on this book. It just made me very uncomfortable. I could not stand Travis, the love interest. He was so aggravating. In the second book, I enjoyed the female main character, and in that one it was a second chance romance in which a couple is trying to save their marriage. The whole problems they're having is just because the husband basically refuses to voice his emotions or any kind of care he has for his wife to her. He does all of these sweet things, but he does them secretly, never mentions them, doesn't bring them up, so she doesn't know he's doing them for her, so she doesn't know to be appreciative of it. And I understood that's where the story was going, was they were trying to work on their communication and understand one another in terms of their love languages. I also just don't think she and I have very similar humor, because oftentimes any humorous situations just came across cringy and inauthentic to me. I just don't think her writing style is for me. I have other favorite romance authors. I can deal with it. This last one is the most recent series that I DNF'd. Also going to be a little controversial. That is An Ember in the Ashes by 𝗖cie když. I am saddened by this one because the first book I was very intrigued. The magic system that was taking place in it and the female main character was very different from what we often see in this genre. But unfortunately, there's a love triangle as the story progresses. There's also insta-love. The way these characters are somehow surviving by doing the most stupid things possible, it drove me crazy. The one thing I was very invested in with this was the magic, and unfortunately it just seemed underutilized as the story had progressed forward. I was in the third book and we were finally getting some more delves into how it was working, how their world had once used it and why it had been dying out, but just not enough. I didn't like 2 out of the 3 main characters. I had to put this one down. We didn't mesh. I think it was just a combination of too many tropes I didn't like, and the aspects of the story that I actually was interested in were not getting near the amount of attention that I was wanting. Okay, so if I didn't make you hate me trash talking all of those series, thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have my Goodreads, Storygraph, Instagram, and Tumblr linked in the description if you would like to keep up with what I am reading. I also come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!